Hello, my friends, and a very warm welcome to Reasoned Live, which is actually 15 minutes late. I said we would start at 1:15 and we haven't. We are one man down. If anyone has seen a right-wing commentator on the prowl on the streets of London, please do send him this way. His name's Alex, and if you see him, he may be in distress because we can't locate him, but we hope he's well. But I am, as ever, joined by Eunice and Chloe, who will be great fun, I've no doubt. What a time it's been. What a bizarre time we are living through, my friends. Lots to talk about today. And yes, one of our YouTube viewers says late. I do apologise. I really am sorry. It's becoming a bit of a joke now. This wasn't intentional, though, I promise. This wasn't due to my incompetence, which is staggering, I admit. Now, what we're talking about today, well, we're going to be discussing the fact that Musk may be forced by the UK Parliament, believe it or not, and good luck, to appear in front of a parliamentary select committee for his stewardship over X, which is, of course, one of the world's biggest social media companies. Then there's the Labour Party, staying on the subject actually of parliamentary select committees. The Labour Party picks for chairs, which are quite powerful, and they're paid roles as well. They are nuttier than a fruitcake, my friend. They can't tell the difference between someone with a cock and someone without one. And I'm talking about health committees. I'm talking about women and equality committees. We'll get into all of that and more. Paid positions to be woker than someone who's had a bloody dose of coffee through an IV drip. And the Trump stitch-up, is it a stitch-up bigger than the Bayeux Tapestry? That's what I'm asking today. The fact of the matter is, you would have thought there was a third candidate on the stage with them in the form of the ABC commentariat. I thought it was appalling. And guess what? One of the heads of ABC, best chums with Kamala Harris. You couldn't make it up. Reform are our only hope. There has been a slew this week of reform interventions within the House of Commons. Nigel Farage spoke at Prime Minister's questions earlier today, and he was heckled and booed and jeered by the Labour masses. And actually, I felt an immense sense of glee and gratitude to the Reform Party, and actually pride in my vote. And then the released prisoners, you'll not believe this. There's a released prisoner, released yesterday, banged up again today. Who could have saw that coming, eh? Who could have guessed it? Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Okay. Chloe and Eunice, hello to both of you.
Hello, hello.
Well, everyone's greatly amused by the fact that Elon Musk getting dragged into the UK Parliament being about as likely as I've seen a pig fly. But
he's just going to expose them more, right?
Yes,
I mean, Hamza Yusuf decided, let's try and put a legal challenge against Musk, and so Elon Musk just laughed and started just taking the mick out of him even more on Twitter. So the Labour Party can just see their poll ratings go down if they start trying to summon Elon Musk. But anyway, I'm sure we'll get to that shortly.
Yes, exactly. Let's get to it now, and I'll let you comment, Eunice. So there is, I have accidentally no platformed Alex, but there is an empty square. But R.I.P. Now. So this is the article that I came across, was it yesterday? Yes. The day before, rather. And Elon Musk reported in the Financial Times as being potentially facing a summons before the UK Parliament over his role of X, which is a social media platform. They're in his sights as they press for roles chairing key Commons committees. Now, I'm going to just quickly go through, just so you get a sense of where, because I always have a theme, there's always method to my madness, so bear with me. This comes after this weekend in which the Sir Keir Starmer was in Ireland on a state visit for the game that England played against the Republic. And both Sir Keir Starmer and the Irish Taoiseach, they actually pledged to crank down on far-right misinformation. Now, to me, That is, anyone that's advocating or campaigning or demonstrating, whatever you want to call it, protesting against the fact that we have not consented to the mass illegal migration being shored up in our country, and we do not consent to it. We do not want to become the third world. And that is going to be misinformation. You'll be clamped down upon and all these other things. And so this is happening in countries around the world now. Brazil just said X will be banned in the country. You've got the likes of France arresting the founder of Telegram, the messaging app.
Pavel Durov.
Yeah, that's his name. And then you get to the United Kingdom and you think, well, it's a select committee trying to get Elon Musk before it, no doubt talking about disinformation and all these other things. It can't get worse, can it? Well, the Health Committee. Layla Moran has been elected chair of the Health and Social Care Committee. Now, Layla Moran doesn't know who has a penis and who has a vagina. She can't distinguish between biological truth and fact and doesn't actually believe that it's immutable either. She also, I believe, was arrested at one point for slapping her husband, but that can't have been very healthy, but that's a non sequitur. The next one, the Women and Equalities Committee. Both of the MPs that are competing to actually chair this committee say that trans women are women. Labour's Kate Osborne, who is from around this part of the world, and Sarah Owen are seeking election in a vote on Wednesday to head the influential backbench group. Now, in a tweet marking Transgender Awareness Week in November 2020, Owen said, "Trans rights are human rights. Trans men are men. Trans women are women. How very profound." And the Kate Osborne actually had a massive argument in which she accused Kemi Badenoch, who was then Women and Equalities Minister, of saying that the trans epidemic they were diseased or something to that effect. So they are radical activists across women and equalities, across health and social care, across the media, the digital media and sport committee as well. And then this push for disinformation. You can see where I'm going with this, Eunice. I think there is a major, major crackdown on freedom of expression online coming down the tracks. We'll be back in the days when Twitter used to actually ban you for saying that a woman doesn't have a cock.
Yes, exactly. And I just don't know, why are they so afraid? If you're with the truth and if you think you are saying what the people truly believe, why do you want to crack down on people that have a different opinion to you? And as I said, like, freedom of speech only matters when someone says something you don't like. And this is not about, protecting communities or far right. This is all about control. They don't want people to repeat things that is not part of the mainstream narrative. And that's all it is. And that's why Elon Musk is being attacked, because he has bought Twitter, now X, and people now can have an opinion. They can challenge things. They can challenge the mainstream narrative. They can challenge politicians. And obviously that is a threat to the establishment, and they don't like it. And I really do hope Elon Musk comes to the parliament in the UK, because I think he will expose them. And that will be one of the last days Keir Starmer would be Prime Minister.
Chloe, a lot of people are saying, well, hang on a minute, they can't extradite. They would have to get an extradition order from the US president or the relevant department to actually sign off Elon Musk being sent over here. But are you telling me that Kamala Harris, as President of the United States of America, and we'll get onto that a bit later, God willing that doesn't happen, but are you telling me that she wouldn't sign the piece of paper to get him over here?
I mean, that's a very good point. I'm no lawyer. I know a little bit of law, but not enough to know for sure exactly what powers the UK has. What I will say is that even if they can't bring him over here, even if they can't convince Kamala Harris to sign a piece of paper to send him over, and I agree she probably would anyway, but if they can't do that, they have the power to ban X in the UK. Even if they can't specifically hold Elon Musk accountable and put him before a court of law here, they can say, like Brazil have said, nope, that's banned in our country. Sorry. You don't
Yeah.
adhere to our strict regulations on censorship, therefore this platform is not legal in the UK. They could do that. And that is genuinely terrifying. And if Kamala Harris does it, we'll do it. The EU will do it. Just you wait.
And on that
Yeah,
point,
but can I
Chloe,
just quickly
about
say
the
about something about that? Because, in Iran, everything is banned. Instagram is banned, Facebook is banned, Twitter is banned. But that doesn't stop people going on Instagram or Facebook and Twitter. They just use a VPN. So I think it's a losing strategy anyway. You cannot defeat technology. You cannot defeat people accessing information. I feel like that boat has already sailed. And I think all this does is that it actually makes people more sneaky. When you ban something, people will just find other ways to get access to it. And then it will create a whole black market of VPNs where people can just access Twitter that way.
Yeah, and then they go to the deeper, darkest bowels of the internet. But Chloe, what do you think then about both the Women and Equalities Select Committee, two people that believe that trans women are women, and Layla Moran, who is the Health and Social Care Committee, who I can't remember, but I don't think she actually publicly, at least, endorsed the review by Dame Hilary Cass. The review into puberty blockers and child transitioning. So what the hell's going to happen here? She's a Liberal Dem, of course, but across the piece, though, you're saying that actually in positions of power, paid positions of power throughout Parliament, the checks and balances on the administration, it's woker than goodness only knows what.
Yeah, and it's terrifying because it's no longer the case that this crazy woke movement is just a loud, shouty group of left-wing people on Twitter that make you scared to speak. It's not just those guys, right? This is properly entrenched in all of our institutions and now in the institutions that create the laws that govern us. So this is really, really scary. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you are on a Women and Equalities Committee, yet you think that a bloke in a frock is a woman, you're not a feminist. You should not be on that committee. Get off that committee.
Yeah. Oh, they will be on it. Labour will vote for them like adoring seals. Right, okay. Staying with Parliament then for a moment or two, I want to turn to Reform because someone's actually just said that Reform need to get out of Parliament and actually get out on the streets and start doing some rallies like the one we attended in London. God, I can't even remember when it was now.
27th of July.
27th of July. Nigel was in Parliament today, and this was during Prime Minister's questions. Just have a listen to what he had to say, because I was quite impressed.
Yesterday we witnessed some extraordinary celebratory scenes outside Britain's prisons, where in some cases serious career criminals were released. And this to make way for, yes, rioters, but equally those who've said unpleasant things on Facebook and elsewhere on social media. Does the Prime Minister understand? There is a growing feeling of anger in this country that we are living through two-tier policing and a two-tier justice system.
I'm angry to be put in a position of having to release people who should be in prison because the last government broke the prison system.
Yesterday we witnessed some extraordinary...
It's always the previous government's fault.
Yeah, well, it was a mealy-mouthed reply, and he didn't actually engage with the substance of the question, which was, around the fact that there is a two-tier police system. I don't remember 24-hour courts for those that burnt the bus and started a bonfire in the middle of the street in Hare Hills. I don't remember a 24-hour court system for the two guys at Manchester Airport who beat a female copper so bad that she had lacerations across her face and a broken nose to boot. I don't remember during the Black Lives Matter riots in which police officers were thrown off of their horses onto their backs, needing hospital treatment for weeks and weeks and weeks, requiring or actually sanctioning a 24-hour court turnaround. I don't remember it when the Lieutenant Colonel Mark Teaton was stabbed most recently in Kent, and I haven't heard anything about that since. Not a peep. I don't remember a 24-hour turnaround there. I don't remember a 24-hour turnaround after the massacre that took place in Southport. I could go on and on and on. There is just... It is quite clear that when you are going after pursuing a carer who posted something on Facebook, when you are going after someone that flew a St. George's flag outside of an Islamic centre, when you are going after someone that, I don't know, posted saying, actually said to a police officer, F Allah, and that's worthy of getting you 2 years in the slammer. You can't tell me that we don't have two-tier policing in this country. I mean, come on. It's based around religious sectarianism in British policing and lawmaking now, and I think that is a deeply, deeply, deeply perilous position for a country to find itself in. Eunice.
Yes, it is. And again, we have a rise in knife crime. We have a rise in robberies. We have a rise in, London is now considered a dangerous city to live in because people are getting robbed all the time. And I just don't understand. Instead of going after violent criminals, after organized criminals, of the big drug dealers, we're going after people that had the post on Facebook, and we're filling our prisons with people that were just giving their opinion online. Sometimes not even a wrong opinion. Sometimes opinions based on facts, but just because that doesn't fall within the mainstream narrative, they're in jail now. And as you said, we are releasing violent criminals early for us to make space for non-violent criminals because of their opinion. And it's just absolutely bonkers. Like, again, this is something like a scene out of the film Idiocracy. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's basically a film that was made in the 80s about how people in the future are so dumb, and it's an idiocracy to the point that nothing makes sense and people are so backwards, and we're on a fast track to an idiocracy in this country.
Well, I certainly feel like that. I mean, Chloe, you've just done a video on this, I know, but you had Nigel today at Prime Minister's Questions. You had Richard Tice saying why, when there are 10,000 foreign criminals blocking up our jails, explain why they are not being removed and deported, simultaneously saving the taxpayer billions every year. Well, you might well ask yourself that question, Richard, but you won't get a sodding answer, I'll tell you that for free. The list goes. I've been really impressed, actually, by what Richard has said in Parliament. More impressed than I have been with Alex Armstrong. But and Nigel Farage,
hello, everybody.
I thought hello, Alex. His intervention in Parliament today was brilliant. So I've been really enthused, actually, by what this cohort of 5 members of Parliament can actually achieve, because they are getting recognition. Their clips are going around online. I posted that's got 100,000 views. Now we need to reach 70 million people, of course. So we've got our work cut out for us. But you see what I mean? The small little cohort, they're doing all right, Chloe. Was that just of your video? I haven't actually watched it yet.
No, don't worry. 5 MPs are making a huge, huge impact. Thank you, Alex, for gracing us with your presence at last. Empty box is filled. But yeah, just going back to this. So I think there's a reason why Nigel's video has got 1 million views, is because that really, really angered people. I think that video showed just how disgustingly out of touch our MPs are. The way that they all sniggered and laughed when Nigel said 2-tier policing and 2-tier justice system, as if he was some bonkers conspiracy theorist, some absolute lunatic for saying that on another planet. When, I mean, Darren, you've just given us a long list. I mean, it took you about 5 minutes to list out all the examples of 2-tier policing, and that was only, 1 in 100 of the examples that we have. There are far, far more. I mean, we have the receipts. It is obvious as day that we have 2-tier policing and a 2-tier justice system. And the fact that they just sit there and laugh like we're all a bunch of idiots for suggesting that there is such a thing is just disgusting, and that has frustrated people. But I think that although there are only 5 MPs, they are able, with the power of social media, to have a huge, huge impact, because although there are only 5 of them, they've been able to project their voice with clips like that. Nigel's got a great big following, and we're able to expose the Labour Party for who they are, because those videos go viral and everybody sees them. I mean, Keir Starmer to just stand there and just blame the Conservative Party, and Richard Tice, I know we've just got a graphic here and not the actual video, but when Richard Tice questioned them on the prisons, and it was Shabana Mahmood responding, again, she just blamed it all on the Tories. Oh, it's not our fault we've got to release prisoners because the Tories didn't bother to build any more prisons. And yes, the Tories did fail. However, there is absolutely no excuse for taking one person out of prison who has committed absolutely disgusting crimes to put someone else in who's posted on Facebook. There's no justification whatsoever. You can't blame the Tories for that.
Yeah, we'll get on to a bit more of Shabana Mahmood later on because she's done something even more mad than that, to be honest.
Oh dear.
But at the dispatch box of the House of Commons, no less. But Alex, are you optimistic about reform's chances? Because you're a bit of a sort of, you're on the fence as to whether or not a reformed, so to speak, Conservative Party with Robert Jenrick at the helm, that sort of gets you going, so to speak.
What I want, I don't know about that. That would be a very unusual Friday night for me. Look, what I will say is this: I want the right of British politics to come together. We cannot win and we cannot beat Labour with divided parties. We just can't. It's not going to happen. We will suck up our own votes and we will lose. That's the reality. Now, and I do believe if Robert Jenrick wins, there might be some reform in the Conservative Party because he does share a lot of concerns that average reformers share. However, that doesn't mean that average reform voters like me feel like they can forgive the Conservative Party so quickly. I would need to see real change in that party in order for me to vote for them. But what I'm hoping for is a leader in the Conservatives that extend a hand to reform, or reform really, or the Tories self-implode and elect someone like Tom Tugendhat, who's wetter than a flannel, and self-implode that way. If they do, I have no sympathy for them, and that's literally it. They have Robert Jenrick is their last hope. I don't trust Kemi Badenoch, but I tell you what, Reform are absolutely smashing it. I'm going to be going to their conference next week, and I'm hoping I might see some of you guys there. And let's see what kind of an event Reform can put together, because maybe the Tories are finished.
Eunice, on that point, on the point of my default position, basically, is that we need to have it would be very good, laudable, if the Conservative Party did reform, because it would mean that actually we've got more of a chance of them teaming up with the 5 Reform MPs. I'm not saying join together as a political party, but to actually vote on against things and stand more of a chance as a sort of parliamentary force. But equally, my default position right now is that you can't trust them.
No, definitely not. And I've been so disenfranchised with the Conservative Party. I used to be a member of the Conservative Party and actually in their Middle Eastern group. So ever since 2016. However, since the last election, I feel like the repetitive failures of, Liz Truss and Theresa May and Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak. And I just don't see them as an opposition to Labour. I see them as a globalist party. I don't think they stand for true conservative values. And I feel like Reform is the only party that does that. Now, the problem is that the Conservative Party is a machine. And how do you reform a machine? Because there's so many powers behind the scenes. There's so many people that fund them. There's so many people that are their sponsors, their donors, their lobbyists. And if you want to reform a party, you have to convince all those people. And unfortunately, that's the corrupt side of politics, where we have a few rich, powerful individuals behind each party that govern them. So those are the people that will give you the green light to go and reform a party. Ideally, I would like to see Reform take over Conservatives. And I hope that, but the problem with Reform is that the Reform has this stigma attached to it that, they're a racist party, they're anti-immigration, Nigel Farage is a racist. And as long as we can separate that in people's minds, saying, no, Reform is a centre-right party that is the best for this country. The Conservatives and Labour are part of the Uni Party. And I hope we can convince people, the Conservative voters, the same thing that happened to me, because I used to be a Conservative, but I switched to Reform. I think all of us are, right? I think if that happens, because Reform is a new party, is still not bound by so much, politics behind the scenes, and they would have a lot more freedom in how they do these things. However, the alternative is that the two parties join and maybe find some middle ground. I just don't see that happening, unfortunately. I feel like the Conservative Party is so rigid, and there's so many politically correct individuals, weak individuals in there that are career politicians that will never let that happen. I just hope that the reform can take over. That's my hope, and I think
Yeah.
it's possible actually.
Chloe, do you think, because this, I'm sure you agree with this, that it is an existential moment for the Conservative Party, and with reform doing so well within Parliament, if they can prove to people over this parliamentary term that actually they are a serious force and they can actually be competent and well, serious, do you think actually the Conservative Party it could be the end of days for it? Because, you know, it's not just the Conservatives. Labour are going to actually, I think, have a serious threat made to them in the form of reform in the Red Wall.
Yeah, so I've got a few things to say on this. So, first of all, reform, they are causing a hell of a storm in there, as we've just been discussing. They are being super powerful with their questions. They are getting in committees. They're getting stuck in. They are showing themselves to be serious about what they're doing. The Conservative, what I was saying in my video earlier is that to me it seems like Reform are the official opposition to Labour and not the Conservatives. And what is really, really disappointing to see is the Conservatives had an opportunity after being defeated at the general election to do two things. A, to have the privilege of actually being the opposition and being able to now criticise the government rather than them being blamed for everything. Now they've got someone to blame. They had the opportunity to make themselves look strong there. They haven't bothered. I haven't seen them at all. They're doing a bit of, they're chit-chatting a bit about their leadership election, but I'm just not seeing any proper opposition. We haven't seen Rishi Sunak at all since the general election. Labour have been able to clamp down on free speech in super draconian ways, as we've been discussing, and barely a peep from the Conservative Party. It only seems to be Reform that are actually showing themselves to be serious opposition. So that was a golden opportunity for the Conservatives, which they have failed to grasp, which makes it hard for me to think that they are going to be a new, rejuvenated party. And then they had the opportunity to actually do a good post-mortem and a good reflection as to how they got to this position. And you saw what happened to Suella. Suella was one of the few people in the party that knew exactly why they had lost the election. And sure enough, they didn't stand by her analysis. They got their head in the sand. They don't want to accept it. And then she didn't have the numbers to be able to run as leader as a consequence.
You know, I sort of put it as we are, and someone's just, I laughed earlier, but I wasn't laughing at you, Chloe. Someone pointed out that if you look on the screen, if you look at Richard Tice, if you look at his hand, it looks like he's holding a cigar.
It does. I just saw that. I just saw that comment.
But anyway, so my view is that actually we are living in a proportional representation world with a first past the post system. So I think there are going to be red wall seats that go for reform in larger numbers than they obviously currently have. And I think that there will be former Lib Dem seats that are taken back by the Conservatives, and then you find out that you've got this uneasy coalition that has to work together. And I think that's what's going to happen if I can...
Darren, I think you're spot on. I think the best case scenario for reform is that there is some sort of hung parliament, and the two parties that can actually come together are Reform and the Tories. I mean, the Tories will increase their vote share in the next election because, like you said, they'll get some of those people who are really angry, particularly the pensioners, back. And Reform will definitely take some red wall seats, and I suspect they'll do really well. It just depends on how well we can eliminate the Liberal Democrats, because they could also join up with Labour to avoid what they'd call a far-right coalition. Wait till the next election. You'll see that word, the far-right coalition. That's what they're going to call it.
Yes. Yeah, like we did with what the Conservative Party did. I apologise. What the Conservative Party did when Nicola Sturgeon was getting in cahoots with Ed Miliband. I remember that.
Coalition of Chaos.
Coalition of Chaos, yes, that was used in 2017. Stephen says, is that your GB News background, Darren? If you are someone that works for GB News, no, it's not. If you don't work for GB News, yes, it is. Right, let's move on. So, right. The other thing that I wanted to quickly touch on, because obviously we have to, would be Donald J. Trump. And yesterday, of course, we had the second presidential debate, although it technically, the first, given that the first debate was with Joe Biden, who is now enjoying some ice cream in the White House somewhere, locked away
On a beach.
Well, in a padded cell. Anyway, and the debate started quite. You saw Kamala Harris walk over quite authoritatively, and she shook his hand, and everyone said, "Oh my God, she shook his hand! How conciliatory! This is progress! Hashtag!" And I just thought, I'm going to be sick. It's 2 a.m. here. I haven't had a drink, and she's acting like this. Like she's the bloody Messiah, walking along, shaking his hand, saying, "See, I can touch the nasty orange man's hand." And it was just ridiculous. And then, you had basically the moderators of the debate saying, "Kamala touched his hand. Donald J. Trump, that nasty little fascist. Do you not remember January 6th? And then they would go to Kamala, "He's a pig, isn't he?" And then Kamala would say, "Yeah, he's a pig." And then they'd turn to Donald J. Trump and say, "Explain why you're a pig." And that was basically the gist of how the whole debate went. And Donald J. Trump, I'm afraid, in my opinion, the only good part for him, it wasn't a bad debate. I certainly don't agree with those saying that this is the end of days. Donald J. Trump's finished. That actually, it was ruinous for him. Someone even said it was as bad for Donald Trump as it was for Joe Biden in that debate in, June? And I'm like, hang on a minute. Joe Biden didn't even know his own bloody name. He was talking so quietly that, he might as well been speaking in Morse code. No one could understand him. So the idea that it was as bad as that is preposterous. But let's have a listen to Trump's closing remarks, because I think these were the best parts of the debate for him in a very biased it was a biased setup, and actually it's a setup that has meant that the Republican Party are saying that they won't do one with the MSM again.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like, we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry.
Germany, by the way, said that they haven't rolled back on their energy transition plans, which they absolutely have. So that was another lie that the established political and media class have told. But there's a thread also that I'm going to bring up now. I need to figure out which box I'm in. Is this the correct one? Oh, Alex has disappeared. And
I'm not here again, guys. I'm going.
Not here. He's gone. There we are. Right. So there was a thread by Colin Rugg, he sort of puts together threads on news, and they're good. He must make an absolute mint off of X. But anyway, it explains in detail The top 5 lies. So, mandatory firearm buybacks. Kamala Harris told Trump to stop lying about her wanting to confiscate firearms. Harris had previously stated multiple times that she wants to launch a mandatory buyback program. She said she was a firearm owner herself in this debate, despite that fact that maybe she wanted the money for her firearms, who knows. The ABC moderators said nothing about that, despite, of course, fact-checking Donald Trump several times throughout the course of the debate. Kamala Harris claimed Donald Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people. That was a hoax that was debunked, but the ABC moderators let it slide. They said nothing. Post-birth abortion. Trump claimed babies were killed outside the womb in failed abortions under Tim Walz, who is the vice presidential nominee under Kamala Harris. Born alive in botched abortions are allowed and left to die. 8 babies who survived abortions in Minnesota were abandoned and sadly perished. The ABC moderators said Trump was lying. They actually used language like that. Sorry, that's not for you, sweetheart. Sat there some jumped up political commentator with some degree from some university I've never heard of, telling a sitting former president of the United States, candidate of a serious political party who will receive tens of millions of votes, that he's a liar. That ain't your place. That is for the people to decide that. That ain't your place. That is political activism. But they said he was lying and they moved on. Defund the police. Kamala Harris laughed when Trump said she wanted to defund the police during a previous interview. Harris said having more cops on the street is wrong. She also supported taking police officers out of schools. Again, they said nothing. Kamala claimed that Trump said there would be a bloodbath if he's not elected, insinuating his supporters would start killing people. That, of course, was false. The comment was made during a rally in which Trump said there would be a bloodbath for the American auto industry, i.e. car manufacturing, if he's not elected. Again, the moderator said nothing. She has also said that actually we shouldn't actually say that anyone arriving illegally over the southern border of the United States of America is illegal, that actually de facto granting them amnesty. You've got millions of people arriving in the United States. And she is trying to make herself out to be this centrist Cecil, when actually she is quite to the left of any, I think, Democratic nominee that has been put forward, certainly in my lifetime. I would argue in the party's history. I can't think of anyone to the left of her on these policy positions. So she is a radical, and actually the moderators, so-called, of this debate were the chief propagandists for Kamala Harris. I'm afraid there's nothing else I've got to say about that. Eunice, did you watch it?
Yes, I did. And I thought Donald Trump actually started the debate very well. So I think for the first half, he done amazing. But then the problem was the second half of the debate, he just kept repeating himself. And then he had a few opportunities to land the knockout blow, and he didn't. For example, when she was, playing identity politics and saying, oh, I'm a black woman, I never cared about people being black, I was attorney general, he could have just said, look, you imprison more black people in California than any other attorney general. I was giving jobs to black people in my casinos and just employing black people all the time. So I think he missed the opportunity. And also, the comment about, people eating cats and dogs, I don't think he should have made that. It just made them look silly, in all honesty. And it was just very repetitive, and I think that was his undoing. I don't think he lost the debate. I would say it was a draw because he started off well and she finished strong. So it was a draw. It wasn't like a knockout blow to Donald Trump, not by any means, but I was kind of disappointed. I'm not going to lie. He had the opportunities to talk about the things that he didn't talk about in the first half. Okay, we get it. You spoke about immigration. We got it. Talk about Kamala Harris's record, not just as vice president, but as attorney general. How she got into politics, question her character the same way she's questioning your character. And I think he just missed these opportunities to land these blows. And I hope there is a third debate. I know they're saying there might not be, but usually every single presidential election has 3 debates. One was with Biden. So the second one's, and I think they should have one more with a more impartial network other than ABC, probably maybe Fox News, but they probably won't do that now.
I don't think there will be, Chloe, because I think actually now they'll be like, oh well, Kamala wasn't a disaster, so we're actually just gonna leave it at that. Actually, we don't want to risk anything else happening, because now, of course, Trump would come back, and Trump himself is saying he isn't sure he wants to do another one, but if they did come back, Trump would be more prepared that perhaps for what she's going to argue, Chloe.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that it would be in Trump's favour to have another debate. I think his team will surely point out the missed opportunities that Eunice has outlined that he did have in this debate and make sure he comes back stronger and comes with the fire. But you'd think that Kamala would want to leave it here, keep going on this high note and not have another one. But apparently she's saying that she wants another one. So I don't know what planet she's on, but I don't think that would be a good idea for her. I suppose that she does. I'd quite like. I know the video with this is quite long, but there's just one bit. So this point 2, which I thought was the most shocking when I watched the video about how much of a liar she is. So if you just look at point 2 on that tweet, if you scroll back up, so Kamala Harris said that Trump calls neo-Nazis very fine people, right? Now, this is painting the narrative that Trump is some evil, scary, fascist, Hitler-like guy. That kind of rhetoric is what led to him having an assassination attempt, right? And she is she's pushing it further. It's the reason why people like Nigel Farage have to be terrified about their security now, because of this kind of rhetoric being used against them, right? But if you would actually look at the detail of what they say, it's absolutely not true at all. So now if you go to that video, I'll show you the bit about the neo-Nazis and you'll see just how much of a blatant liar she is. So if you scroll through, I'll know the scene. Yes, it's this scene here. If you go to start that,
very and you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And
so that's basically like us here in the UK saying, oh, there's an anti-immigration protest and there are some people there that have some genuine concerns that are peacefully protesting. Those are fine people. On the other hand, you've got people setting fire to migrant hotels and harming police. Those people should be condemned, right? That would be a perfectly reasonable thing to say. She's completely twisted this the other way around and said that he said the neo-Nazis were fine people. And it's just this rhetoric just leads us to a very dangerous place, I think.
Yeah, it does. Alex, is this not disinformation?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is. You took the words out of my mouth, Darren. But I'm not surprised. This is the same old left who have an agenda. The mainstream media have an agenda to put Kamala Harris in power. It's no surprise to me that they call him a liar live on TV, because they want to do everything they can for those small amount of swing voters to go to vote for Kamala Harris. And it doesn't matter if he says afterwards, well, that's a lie, because no swing voter is going to see it. Obviously, Trump's own group are going to know it was a lie. We know it's a lie. Kamala Harris's people believe it's true. And that's all that matters in America. And it's got to a point now where you might as well just lie as they do to get into power. The difference is Trump isn't willing to lie. Yes, he might say some silly things sometimes, but politicians do. But he isn't lying on the grand scheme of things. America itself is so divided that this election is going to come down to the smallest handful of people across the states. I mean, you keep seeing the polls, they're almost neck and neck. Yeah. Not that I believe them. But even so, there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of people, very, very powerful people, that do not want Donald Trump to get back into power. And these debates always go against Donald Trump. I said the first debate was a ruse. They wanted Trump to debate Biden so they could get rid of Biden and put Kamala in, because they knew come this time in the election, had Trump gone up against Biden now, that they wouldn't have the time to get rid of him. So they did it on purpose, and Trump's campaign have to stop falling for their tricks.
Does anyone think that actually the endorsement by Taylor Swift of Kamala Harris will have an impact and actually help swing it for Kamala Harris? Because that's another dirty tactic, right? They've even put out friendship bracelets inspired by Taylor Swift. Like, how patronising. With Kamala Harris's name on. I'm not joking. A friendship bracelet with a name on.
It will, Darren. It will. It will swing votes. It will swing probably young girls who might not have never ever voted before, and it will get them to the ballot box because Taylor Swift said to do it. They know why. That's why they're dragging her out, and they probably paid a fortune by the Democrat Party.
Very obsessed with Taylor Swift.
Yeah, they are. Exactly.
Like even people I know who are on the right, they're all like obsessed with her, even though she puts out her Biden cupcakes, and not Biden anymore, it's Kamala cupcakes now, right? She's super left wing, but loads of people on the right, they're obsessed about it, like, oh my god, I gotta go to the next Taylor Swift concert, else I'm gonna die. I have to get tickets. I'll give a kidney to go to a Taylor Swift
I like
concert.
her. I disagree with her politics. She used to be a Republican, believe it or not. But like,
Really?
I can't. Well, yeah, this sort of Southern Belle, like it was a very big Republican base. I think her family were Republicans. But
I just always think it's very childish when people like center their whole life around some celebrity or musician that they've never even met before. I just think it's so childish. Yet there are so many adults who are like, "Oh my god, Taylor Swift."
It actually makes me slightly mad that someone like her, who is one of the wealthiest people in the world, never mind musicians. She is far above, streets ahead of any musician. She is making money like you wouldn't believe. She's a billionaire. And she's got security coming out of her eyeballs. She's never going to actually be raped by an illegal migrant or anything like that, is she? So all these young women that she's convincing to vote for Kamala Harris.
But her audience is targeted by ISIS. I mean,
yes,
it's
true.
incredulous,
Yeah.
That's the mad thing. I don't get it.
No, but also, during the debate stage, Kamala Harris was saying, oh, yeah, people come to Trump rallies and they leave early. First of all, that's not true because Trump has amazing rallies. Hundreds of thousands of people turn up at his rallies and they turn up for him. Okay, for Kamala Harris, before she comes on stage, we have Megan Thee Stallion, which is probably the worst, role model for any girl, twerking on stage before she comes on. And it's funny because as she comes on, people start leaving. And I'm thinking, what kind of a rally is that? That's just so cheap to have Megan Thee Stallions twerking on stage before you come on. And also the thing about Taylor Swift, and the thing with Taylor Swift is that I know she's got a massive fan base. Personally, I'm not a fan. I only listened to a couple of her songs like years ago. And I always thought this about Taylor Swift is that she's providing the wrong example for young girls. I mean, she always talks about how the patriarchy, how men are bad. And she's a 36-year-old woman. She's like still singing about her heartbreaks that happened when she was 17 years old. She probably has better music out right now. I don't know. I was just walking past Wembley the other day and she had a concert there. And the amount of people that were there, of all ages, mostly women, it was astounding. So I know she has a massive fan base. I just don't think she provides a good example to young girls. No. And the fact that she endorsed Kamala Harris, again, she endorsed Biden as well back in 2020. And I think that swung a lot of votes. But it's funny because it's ironic for Kamala Harris to say, oh, people go to Trump rallies because of Trump. Yeah, people are only voting for you because you bring Megan Thee Stallion to twerk before your rallies, and you get people like Taylor Swift to endorse you. No one actually likes you. Even the Democrats themselves don't like you. You didn't even get a single vote the last time you ran for a primary. And the fact that you are a presidential candidate shows how corrupt the democratic system, especially the Democratic Party, is, because she kept saying Trump is a threat to democracy. No, you're a threat to democracy. No one voted for you. You're not qualified to be in that position, in my opinion. And now the mainstream media is trying to pretend that, oh, she's the best thing since sliced bread. When there were her approval ratings as a vice president is in the 20s. She's deeply unpopular within the Democrats themselves. So the whole thing is a hoax, I think. The whole thing is, again, it's the establishment against an individual. And I hope, David v. Goliath, and I hope David wins.
I'm just so glad we have Oasis in this country who will literally put their middle fingers up to a government and say it as is. Yeah. We have the opposite of Taylor Swift in the UK, which for me is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Someone said in the comments that Taylor Swift is the Carol Vorderman of the USA.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good lord.
Well, it's just the dumbing down of society is just it's so terrifying to think that people will vote for the future of their whole country can lie in this one election, and they'll just listen to a pop star because the pop star said so. Again, Kamala Harris has put no policies out. It all makes me feel a bit sick and uneasy, if I'm being honest with you. It makes me very concerned.
I watched an interview with Tim Waltz earlier, and it was MSNBC, and they were like, "You won't have seen this yet, but I'm going to read this out to you. I don't normally do this." And she said, "You've had a message on an Instagram story, and it's by Taylor Swift." And Tim Waltz was like... And then Tim Waltz ended the interview by saying, "I also have a cat." And I'm like... Okay, sort of billions of people around the world. Who gives a flying flamingo?
The Haitians do, because they're eating them.
Well, that's
the Haitians do. More cats, more food.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get a Haitian to eat Taylor Swift's cat. That's gonna.
That'll be the new way that we distinguish between left and right on the political spectrum.
No, you know what they'll do. Chloe. You know what they'll do? They'll turn cat into some sort of delicacy, because the left will have to endorse anything illegal immigrants do. They'll go, "Oh, but that's a new thing we're doing now."
And I also wish there was more people.
It's a delicacy.
Yeah,
it's a delicacy.
I can't believe I survived years in Los Angeles. I used to
You can actually go. You can go to these. You can go to these like cat poo coffee bars, and you pay an insane amount of money.
There's a few in London as well.
Specialist coffee made out of cat shit.
I think this actually was in Newcastle, believe it or not. Anyway,
I just hope there was more celebrities endorsing Trump. I don't know why there's still this stigma attached to Donald Trump. There must be a lot of singers. There must be a lot of people that support Trump. I don't know why they don't come out and say it. Because they're scared they're going to get attacked by the system. They might get cancelled.
Yeah. And their press,
but that's again the problem.
Their media, their recording labels will all be saying, "Don't do that, or we'll drop your contract." You know, I bet you Taylor Swift. What if she does go to the ballot box and she ticks the Republican box because she doesn't fancy paying all of her billions over in tax?
Yes,
I mean,
quite right.
Anyway,
it's all right if you're a celebrity to put out a left-wing view. That's not going to get you have your career thrown down in the garbage. Absolutely fine. You know, people like Bella Hadid and Gigi Hadid, they'll still get all their modelling contracts, even if they keep on posting how much they love Palestine, right? But if they put up one Israeli flag on their story, that'd be it. Career over. Goodbye.
I'm afraid to say
Double
that
standards.
Bill reminds us that Noel Gallagher went to number 10 with Tony Blair. So
he did.
I'm sorry,
but a lot of people got drawn into that. I think he actually did an interview afterwards condemning Tony Blair, but
probably after the Iraq War.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Moving on from Donald J. Trump. God bless you, sir. Good luck. Godspeed. Anyway, English heritage. We've gone from Orange Man bad to English country fucked. This is the English heritage, and it says this was sent to me. I'm not joking. This was sent to me by a pensioner, God bless her, and she was on the English Heritage website, and she stumbled looking at the concessions, because obviously pensioners have to make savings where they can these days. Now that Sir Keir Starmer is concerned about his £4,000 to £5,000 for expenses for energy bills, but he's going to slash theirs, and this pensioner was scrolling through, looking at the concessions, and came across this. "I am a refugee. Do I qualify for free entry to English heritage sites?" And it says, yes. If you've been granted refugee status, which, by the way, 90% of the boat arrivals have, if you've been granted refugee status or have been given leave to remain as a displaced person, you mean a legal chancer, a gimme grunt, you can visit English heritage sites for free. And the pensioner won't get maybe some discounted rates. You know, I wouldn't get in for free. It just like what? And do you really think that's someone coming over here from Afghanistan who was coming here to get into either go into the black market or to find a job somewhere or whatever else? Do you really think that they want to visit some disused castle in an English heritage site? It's just virtue signalling. That's what gets me the most. The pensioners lose out the most, and someone that's arrived here and been given everything that we can possibly offer him, he won't have to worry about his energy bills. Gets free entry to an English heritage site. I just don't get it. The whole thing just smacks of absolute nonsensical arsehole antics, to be perfectly frank. And I've probably been blocked by the English Heritage because I said, that's it. I'm destroying my passport and I'm coming back over as a boat person. What else do they get for free? Like at this point, I'd be able, maybe I could come back to my flat. I could say, oh, it's an empty flat. I'm going to be a squatter. I don't know whose it is. I wouldn't have to pay the mortgage. My energy bills would be paid for. I'd get benefits. I'd be able to go to a local English Heritage site in for free. I'd have the life of Riley. It would be a doddle. Rant over. Chloe, were you especially aggrieved by English Heritage?
I think this is absolutely disgusting. I mean, it just completely takes the piss to be an organisation that has the word English in it, yet you make English people pay for entry, but non-English people who have broken into the country illegally and broken the law, they're allowed to walk around for free. Really? If it was free entry for everyone and you give free entry to me as well, okay, all right. But if it's free entry specifically for criminals, that's what it is. I'm sorry, but that's just out of order. Bang out of order.
I mean,
and it's
Alex,
such a shame because I used to be so proud of some of the charities and organisations we have in this country that do great work to keep this country great and keep it beautiful. You know, I have my life having lived in Cornwall and used the Cornish coast paths constantly, enjoyed them massively, and many National Trust sites. I've appreciated the National Trust so much. They've gone completely woke and say that the countryside is racist and there are too many of us white lot there, right? And then the English Heritage doing this as well. They're all going down the same route, and it's pretty disappointing.
Yeah. Alex,
I just don't get the purpose of it. Like, what's the purpose? Who are they trying to please? Like these people, like why would we even need them to go and see these English heritages? Like, they're illegal immigrants. They have other worries, surely. I just don't get it. And the other day, I was actually walking down Park Lane. And for those of you that don't know where Park Lane is, it's like somewhere near Hyde Park. And there was literally camps of people living in between. Yeah. And it was like something out of a scene in, you know, San Francisco or in LA. I was thinking, what the hell? Literally, like.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, that is like one of the posh. That is one of the poshest streets.
To English heritage sites. Like, I just don't get it. Again, I'm like you, Darren. I really don't understand it. Who are they trying to please? What's the thought process behind it? I just don't get it at all.
Alex, it's just virtue signaling, isn't it? It's just to look good. That these people are left-wing activists. They aren't there to be custodians of English heritage and the inheritance that we've had passed down to us. They're just there to virtue signal and, you know, have spread left-wing propaganda. That's all this is.
Yeah, well, we you know, the people who run these organisations are people who actually can't become professional, you know, people who actually look after artifacts and do a real job. You know, they are people who've come straight out of useless universities, done useless degrees. They are far left, they're political activists, and they've infiltrated the country's institutions from top to bottom. And they're always institutions that had some meaning to our country, including the civil service. And it beggars belief at the moment. We've only had 2 months of this government, and we're seeing the emboldenedness of all these quangos and institutions, even the police, to basically go and have free reign now of the policies that they were slightly suppressed by the Tories. I'm not saying they were completely suppressed, because the Tories oversaw 14 years of it. But now they've almost felt like, wow, we've been liberated. We've had all the chains taken off of us. We're just going to go full crazy now. And I mean, for the pensioners, you're right, Darren. This is the people I really worry about when it comes to getting access to the taxpayer-funded and charitable donations they've made to these societies for God knows how many years. And they can't go for free, but somebody comes over on a dinghy. You're right. Just you know what? Chuck your passport in the channel. Go and sunbathe somewhere for a few months, and then come back. And you're going to get free entry to English heritage sites. You're going to get a free warm home for the winter. You're going to get your bills paid for. Your social housing, you'll be put on the top of the priority list. It's absolutely insane.
Richard says
exactly.
On
it shouldn't
YouTube.
be easier to come to a country illegally than it is to go there legally. And I've been actually looking to move to America for like a couple of months now. I have a few connections there. And the process you have to go through just to go there It's insane. Like, if you want to get a work visa, like, you have to be an extremely talented individual, and you have to prove to the embassy that, oh, I can do this job better than anyone else that's in the US. And it's a jarring process, and it might take years. On the contrary, you can go to the southern border, just walk in, undocumented immigrant. There's like 10,000 of them crossing the border in America every single day. And and then they all get, papers within a few months, and they can work and stuff. Same with the people that, as I said before, like, I made a video about this briefly. I said that, countries like Dubai, they take good quality, high quality immigration, and that's why their societies are thriving. Instead, we have it backwards in Western Europe and in the UK, where we let people illegally, we give them all the access to our NHS, we give them free housing, we give them benefits, and then we have talented individuals that are educated, they are smart, they can bring a lot of money and services to this country, and we make it so far for them. So again, it's very backwards.
Richard on YouTube says, are urban areas racist? London is now 60% non-white, and that reminds us of the National Trust, who said the countryside is racist because not enough black and minority ethnic people actually go to the countryside. So the whole thing's been totally captured by DEI. It really has, and it needs to die. Right, I'm going to go through this next story and blitz through a few examples just to feed through what's been happening. So, first of all, before the prisoners were released, we had the news that hundreds of crime victims weren't actually told of their perpetrators' early release. Almost 1,700 prisoners were due to be freed, of course, as part of a scheme to ease prison overcrowding, and hundreds of victims of these criminals were not told that these people were getting out. And one of those who was told was the mother of this woman here, who's called Dion, and Dion is from Newcastle, and I've had email correspondence with Dion, and that guy that you can see in the bottom left there is her son, that Gordon he was called, and Gordon was murdered with a big blade, one of those zombie knife type things, and the thug who actually, was involved in his murder is let out. So she's lost her child, he's gone forever, and this guy gets out on early release. And someone who paralysed a baby, he's out as well. So, we ain't letting out our best, and that's proven by today's news, just news earlier today, actually, earlier this afternoon. An inmate has been rearrested.
One man was immediately rearrested by police at the prison gate. One man was immediately rearrested by police at the prison gate.
At the prison gate, at the actual sodding gate, rearrested on suspicion of rape and sexual assault, literally seconds after being released under Keir Starmer's early prison release scheme. And then you think, maybe Labour will think about this and they'll think, could we potentially have done the wrong thing? We're not too proud to admit when we've made a mistake. They've got an idea. Shabana Mahmood, who is this woman here, who is Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood has said that she told the House of Commons at the dispatch box that if there's no room left in bail hostels or community accommodation, no problem. We're going to stick former convicts in hotels. The same ones that, of course, the British people can't afford to stay in for a weekend break. And apparently, instead of actually addressing overcrowded jails or sorting out proper housing for offenders, and it doesn't have to be nice, as far as I'm concerned, it could be the Bibby Stockholm. The solution is to treat criminals to a taxpayer-funded staycation. I said, brilliant. We've got veterans sleeping rough, yet we're booking hotels for inmates. What an absolute farce. So that's Shabana Mahmood's bright idea. I just wonder, where do you think this will end, Alex? Because ultimately, the Labour Party, they aren't going to be able to build the prisons fast enough. They're not sorting out anything for asylum claims, and they're not asylum seekers, as we all know. They are gimmigrants. So these gimmigrants are going to be sent up and down the country in council housing, whilst there's a housing shortage. It's chronic housing shortage in this country. many single mothers looking to get on the housing ladder themselves, social housing so they can have a bedroom for their child or whatever else. And they can't access them, but these immigrants are going to get them. And now hotels for these former inmates that are getting out of prison early. Just what the hell is the country going to look like after 5 years of this?
It's absolutely shocking. I couldn't believe when I saw that headline in the Daily Mail today. I couldn't believe it. I mean, first of all, if there's one of him, how many more are there?
Exactly.
Because it's the net. How big is the net, and how many are going to slip through? There's thousands being released onto the streets today, yesterday, and throughout the next month, celebrating, popping. It's disgraceful. I'm furious. I'm furious. We can find space and we can build hospitals in record time during COVID, but we can't seem to have enough space and energy to build temporary prison accommodations for some reason. I mean, a bit of barbed. I mean, I don't care. The prisons aren't meant to be nice. They're meant to be punishment. But the reality is we have 10,000 foreign criminals in our prisons, and the easy solution would be to deport them all today. Get them all out of our country immediately. Yeah. I don't want those people here. I don't want my tax money being paid for foreign criminals to sit in prisons. God knows what kind of crimes they've committed. Get them out of my country. That's all I have to say about it. Is that is our easy solution to the overcrowding in our prisons. Stop letting foreign criminals face justice in our country when they will get, because the only reason they're allowed to stay is because people like Keir Starmer want them to have an easier justice system than the one they'll face going back home. Simple as that.
I mean, Germany have said they're going to ignore ECHR rulings. Why on earth couldn't the British just have done that? We're such a bloody weak nation. It's pathetic. But Chloe, did you know the story of Tom Roberts, who was an aspiring Royal Marine, and Tom was murdered he was working as a bouncer outside of a nightclub. And he was murdered by some bloke from Afghanistan with a machete. Now, this bloke had been through Europe, 2 countries in Europe, and he had murdered some, I believe, actually 2 people in Serbia. And he went through 2 countries in Europe. Both of those countries said, no way, Jose, get out. So off he tots, and he ends up in Britain. He says he's a child, and we let him into a school. He's caught with a knife. He's suspended from school. 2 days before he commits the murder, he's caught with a machete. The police let him out. And then 2 days after that, of course, he murders the aspiring Royal Marine Tom Roberts. And he's in prison for 29 years. Are you happy for your taxpayer money to be keeping someone at His Majesty's pleasure for 29 years when actually we could just send the bastard back to Afghanistan?
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely disgusting. I am fed up of seeing more and more of these stories. Innocent, aspiring Marine, as you said, someone who wanted to defend our country and is proud of our country. He sadly lost his life because our government can't be bothered to have a border. This guy never should have been in the country in the first place, let alone sitting for 29 years in our prisons, being housed and fed at the taxpayer's expense. Now, I know that they say that, you can't send someone back to a dangerous country. And yes, Afghanistan is a dangerous country. But I'm sorry, if you've murdered someone, I don't give a toss. You can go to hell.
Quite right.
You deserve to go back to Afghanistan as punishment for what you've done. How dare you think that you've got the right to be housed and fed in this country at the taxpayer's expense after you've literally murdered someone who's not just an innocent British citizen, but someone who wanted to work hard to defend our country.
Yeah, I mean, Eunice, if I went over to Iran and I murdered someone, what do you think they would do to me?
Yeah, well, your punishment would be hanging, so they'll hang you because it's a death penalty there.
That's cheaper.
But then
the
only problem with deporting that guy back to Afghanistan is that he'll probably go back to Afghanistan. They will release him, and he will try to find a way to get back to the UK. And, he would rip up his passport and come in with a different identity. So unless we can make sure that we deport these people back to their own country and they will face punishment back in their own country, then, it's very hard to say. Because I know if he goes back to Afghanistan, he will make his way back into Europe somehow and he will murder someone else. So maybe it's better just to keep him in the prison here to avoid...
Well, Oz says it costs us £4.2 million. Yeah. 4.2 million.
Easy solution to that, by the way, Eunice, is we fingerprint them. We ID them and we put that out to Europe.
Oh, Alex, hang on. The 2 countries in Europe that he went through did do that. And we sent off his fingerprints to those countries. But guess what? The Home Office didn't ask those 2 countries to follow up on those fingerprints and check them against their records. They had the fingerprints. So actually, and the ECHR said that the British state, didn't know that there was a significant risk to life by this individual. He carried a fucking machete around with him, like his bastard Rambo.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, but look, I just don't understand. Wasn't it the punishment for carrying a knife like 10 years in prison or something? Or machete? I'm pretty sure that was the law.
To get time in prison, but I don't...
but he should be able to carry a machete because, he's a poor refugee in racist Britain and he needs to have something on him to defend himself when all us far-right fascists go and attack him,
Yeah. No, I just don't understand that. Why wasn't he arrested the first time around and thrown in prison before he got killed?
I genuinely have no idea, but you'll never find out, Eunice, because the inquiry has been scrapped. The ECHR, European Convention on Human Rights, said that Article 2 hasn't been breached, and therefore...
But I reckon if it was a far-right guy, we would not stop hearing about it for like 20 years. From 20 years, like the same way, the Stefan... I've forgotten the guy's name, sorry, but there was a black man murdered in the 90s. What was his name? Stefan something?
Oh, Stephen... oh, God. Lawrence. Was it Lawrence?
Yeah, Lawrence. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and we still hear about it. Look, it was an atrocious murder, yeah? But 30 years later, we're still having documentaries made about it. But then this guy gets killed. No one talks about it. Why? Because it's Afghan illegal immigrants that got into this country. Where's the documentary about the murdered person? It's just ridiculous,
Yeah, it makes me very sad. I feel for the family because they're absolutely heartbroken that there's not going to be an inquiry into this. But there's a reason there's not going to be an inquiry into it, right? Because the state know that everything would be exposed. And they know they're wrong. Right, next story. Staying with the police. Did anyone see this video?
Yes. I did see that, yeah.
Right, so let's have a listen. I have to say this, but if anyone's offended by the language, I do apologise, but I'm not, so here we are.
So you have a problem with my words?
Yes.
Because a filthy migrant just spat on me?
Yeah, that is
and you've got the issue with me?
We have a duty to challenge that language, because we're police officers. And it's
because he's filthy and he's a migrant and he attacked me like the other one.
We're trying to help you report which is offensive, isn't it? We can't not challenge that language because there's people in the public.
Okay, what's your numbers? So you'll find my language offensive. 1483 3028.
I'm still happy to help you with your
1192.
Challenge you when you use language like that,
especially when you're hearing in the public as well, because obviously the people walking past us.
I think that's fair.
Well, I think filthy migrants attacking English people is disgusting.
Yeah, but you're also swearing as well, madam.
And that's an issue. Since when is swearing a crime?
We deserve to get spoken to with respect too. Like
and you're in public where there's people, kids not too far away.
Just doing our job.
People can hear that.
Well, I'm not interested in a PC lecture. If you want to take my details, that's fine. So you have a problem.
Yeah, so she received this moral lecture. Apparently she was spat at by this migrant fella and she's described him as a filthy migrant. Now, I'm not being funny, but I think spitting at someone like a bloody camel does make you filthy. I would consider a camel to be quite a filthy animal. And anyone that spits at you is filthy in return. So... should the police be stood there giving her a moral lecture on her language and policing her language instead of actually policing the fact that someone's just spat on this poor woman?
Frankly, sorry, Chloe. Frankly, Darren, the police should be doing their job, which is arresting someone who's essentially committed a crime against her. If you changed her language to filthy, I don't know, Liverpudlian or filthy Londoner, the police wouldn't have a problem. That's the reality. It's because of the word migrant. It's almost become a swear word. It's censorship. And I'm just so furious that, she's not actually swearing. Saying the word filthy isn't a swear word. Saying the word migrant isn't a swear word. She's just expressing her disgust with the situation she's been put in. I'd be angry. I'd use emotional language if that were me. And of course, this is the same old police, the woke-infested police, who would rather morally lecture somebody than actually do their job. Unbelievable.
Well, Eunice Richard says, I would too. Filthy migrant was not okay, though I guess she was angry. Do you think it wasn't okay to use that language?
No, but as Alex said, neither the word filthy nor migrant is a swear word.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the issue is here, and I just don't know why the police are standing there and trying to give her a lecture instead of going and arresting the guy or giving the guy a lecture for spitting at her. And maybe if the guy got away, they can just say, okay, it's okay, ma'am, sorry, I know you are emotional right now, you're angry. We will take your report and we will take action against the person. And then instead they just stood there giving her this moral lecture about her language when she was just spat on. I just don't get it.
Chloe, whenever I use this, which is a little vape, people say that it's a filthy habit, right? So
Yeah,
do I have the right?
Get
do
off
I
that
have
thing,
the
it's
right?
rotting your brain.
Oh, well, do I have the right to actually say to the police that someone has just said I have a filthy habit?
So what I would say is that, if you say filthy habit, you're saying the habit itself is filthy, right? So if you say filthy migrant, I understand what she meant. She meant this guy is filthy because he spat on me, and that is disgusting, and he happens to be a migrant. But what it came across as is he is filthy because he's a migrant. All migrants are filthy.
Yeah.
And so
That's
I can understand why it came across abrasive. Now, do I think that that is something that the police should be shouting at her for and lecturing her on and suggesting that it's illegal, you might get arrested and whatnot? No, I don't. Right? I think they might say to her, look, I think you need to calm down a little bit. You're clearly quite stressed out because you've just been assaulted, right? I think that spitting on someone is worse than using a hurty word against them, right? So yes, the police are saying here, we'll help you with your crime, but we need to address the fact that you use these hurty words first. I think the first thing they should be doing is getting after this criminal and taking her crime seriously, because spitting on someone is absolutely disgusting. And then maybe afterwards don't tell her it's illegal, but just maybe you can say, look, maybe when you're in public, sort of
Yeah, but one more caveat to this.
Careful.
How did she know?
I mean, I don't know the best way to say it, but we've all been in a situation with someone where we're not acting as police, but our friends got all riled up and we're like, just take a deep breath, calm down. We know you're upset, but, I understand the police using de-escalation in that way, but I don't think they should be suggesting we're going to arrest you if you're using this language. And I think that they should be making the crime the first and foremost issue here.
Yeah, but one more caveat to this. I just want to know, how did she know that the guy was a migrant? Maybe that's why they're saying, maybe the guy just looked foreign and then she was like, oh, this filthy migrant. Well, how do you know he was a migrant? So maybe that's why the police got involved, because when you say that, it comes across a little bit racist. So maybe that's a little caveat we should think about as well. But even though I don't agree with what the police done.
I mean, look, there's a whole wider context to this whole thing we haven't seen. It's really important we state that, because we don't know the circumstances that led up to the spitting or anything. It's not that anyone should spit at anybody. But I think the point that Darren started off with is that why are the police not doing their job and going after this guy rather than lecturing her and also trying to calm her down? She's clearly very upset for whatever reason, and they're agitating the situation by, you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't say that. Obviously, she clearly is upset enough to be filming them and using that language in the first place. And I've seen all these adverts on the tube in London going, be the change. There's even one that I took a photo of just a few weeks ago that has a picture up saying, you just arrested a drug dealer. There's a drug dealer. You should talk to him. Maybe he's committed a crime, but maybe you can be the change in his life, and all this nonsense. But when push comes to shove, and there's just someone on the street who's been spat on, a crime committed against them, the police have no empathy whatsoever. This is the problem. This is why people see the two-tier society.
Be the change. Oh, well, I would love to, my dear, but there's a knife in my back and I'm not sure how to get it out.
Well, it's like that German police officer, isn't it? Poor bloke.
Well, yeah, 3 Metropolitan Police officers, though, gathered round her, lecturing her about her language. I just think that is so excessive. Anyway, right, we'll move on from that. Let's quickly round through this one. So, to give you a European rundown, I haven't done this in a while, Germany, as I said earlier, they're ignoring the ECHR. They've tightened their controls of their borders, so the Schengen area and all these other things is coming under great strain within the EU. And let's not forget that Angela Merkel invited 1 million people in 2015? And I said, are your mates in Germany far right too, Sir Keir Starmer? And then in Austria, you've got them applauding the Hungarians, so Viktor Orban's government, the leader of Austria's Freedom Party welcomed Hungary's initiative to ship migrants by bus to Brussels as form of a protest against the EU's policy of strong-arming Hungary into accepting them. This is a good initiative, he said, from Viktor Orban. Others should follow his example. If the bureaucrats in Brussels want migrants, they should take them themselves. And I say, fair play to you. He speaks, and Hungary upped the ante in the migration debate with Brussels by presenting the buses that it can actually use to send the migrants straight through to Brussels, with a Hungarian politician repeating the threat on Monday after Belgium said it would reject the buses. Why do we not have the gall to do these things? You know, why we should be doing the same to France.
And on the Eurostar.
Yeah. So it just, it goes on and on and on. But does it not suggest to you that actually if there's the political will, we can actually have border control, because Hungary are making sure that they don't end up in the same sodding mess that the rest of Europe are in?
Exactly.
Eunice,
so,
you start. Yeah.
So basically, they have the political will to go and arrest people because of some posts on Facebook and throw them in jail, but they don't have the political will to deport hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of illegal migrants. And I feel like Western Europe is just fed up. Germans are fed up, the French are fed up, the Italians are fed up, the Hungarians are fed up. And the tide is turning because people are saying, look, we can't have unfiltered immigration into our country. It's ruining our societies. It's raising crime. It's keeping wages low. People are not adapting and assimilating, which over time could be a threat to the democracy and to our way of life. And more and more countries are saying, I'm done with that. Germany, which was the biggest proponent of migration in Europe, is now saying we're going to ignore ECHR. So now, unfortunately, we have a government in Keir Starmer, a politically correct woke government, that will not do a thing about immigration. And that's just pure wrong. Or maybe they're looking at these people and say, well, if we take them in, they're going to become our voters in 5 to 10 years time. And maybe that's the strategy the Democrats are using. So it's a very dark strategy that they have. And it's, look, these countries, Western Europe, is already on its way down unless people wake up.
Alex?
Well, I mean, look, I think the reality is that places like Germany have a lot of weight when it comes to tackling the immigration problem, and we're going to see this. And I think you're going to see Macron and others really desperate, really desperate to win their next elections and stop people like the AfD and the National Rally in France. And even here in the UK with reform, they're going to be desperate to stop them. So I actually think that they will start changing their tune on this very soon. And someone like Viktor Orban, I think he should do it. If we had any balls in this country, we would have done it years ago. I mean, I'd be turning the boats back and dragging them back to Calais personally. That's what I'd be doing. Yeah. We need strength. We've got to stop being such a nanny country. We really do. But I think the political will is shifting in Europe. I think the political tide is slowly shifting. And we will win in the end. The problem we have at the moment is the right is divided, but we will unify towards the next 5 years.
All right, Chloe?
So Nigel Farage, he gave a speech to a select committee, I think yesterday or the day before, where he was talking about this. I did put up a little short clip of it on our page. And Nigel was saying, look, the conversation about immigration, it's only just starting here in places like Germany and France. They are so much further along the line than we are. The problem has progressed so much more there. We think it's a terrible problem here in the UK, but I was just looking at the stats yesterday, and the number, I think, in 2023 of illegal migrants getting into Germany was over 5 times that of the UK. So it's a heck of a lot worse there. And what Nigel was doing is he was sending a warning to Keir Starmer. He said, look, the problem as it is now has caused so much pain to the Conservative Party, i.e. they've been annihilated. If you don't do something too, you're going to face the consequences, and a lot of pain for the Labour Party as well.
Yes. All right, let's, because it's conscious, it's nearly 9 o'clock, although Alex did arrive at, 8:15?
I'll do some later time.
Yeah. So I just put this out on my Substack. This is not a plug. I just liked the graphic that I'd made. But you can find me on Substack. It's darrengrimes.com. Anyway, I go through all of the stories around, and I hope people haven't missed this because I think it's an important story. This is Rachel Reeves, if you can't see from the graphic. There she is, smiling massively with her big bag of taxpayer cash that she's just clawed back from the poor pensioners. And actually, £400,000 has been spent on the Labour Party heating their own homes, whilst this poor dear on the right won't get a penny. So there we are. Now, Rachel Thieves, the chancing chancellor, and her sidekick, Sir Keir Stalin, they'll be snug and warm. Thieves herself has racked up a whopping $4,400 in taxpayer-funded expenses to keep her second home toasty. And over the last 5 years, the Labour Party have claimed over $400,000 in energy expenses. Meanwhile, of course, 10 million pensioners have been told to go whistle. And then they're coming after the single person discount with council tax potentially. So if you're a widowed pensioner or a single mother, well, Rachel Thieves has had enough of you. And they have just announced that they will give Ukraine £600 million. So David Lammy announced yesterday, and I know Eunice was keen to talk about this as well, but they announced yesterday that he was with Blinken, who was in the Biden administration, that actually, David Lammy said, I know what I can do to virtue signal to my American friends after I've just pissed them all off by disarming Israel. I'll hand over 600 million quid to Ukraine. So 600 million quid there, right, to Ukraine. £11.6 billion in overseas aid for the climate crisis by this man here, Ed Miliband, or Wallace and Gromit there, and this poor pensioner shivering. So 600 million, 11.6 billion in overseas aid, and then a whole slew of other things. And I said, what's this £12 billion in climate aid going to go on? Probably a country with a space programme and more carbon emissions than the cast of Only Way is Essex have had cosmetic procedures. So I can't actually understand the rationale here. Like Sir Keir Stalin is actually playing Grim Reaper whilst, and I asked people to vote if this is the worst government they've ever known, and currently it's on 97% for yes. But all this energy bills as well, right? Maybe I would be okay if Sir Keir Davos had actually said that what they're going to do is expand oil and gas procurement within the North Sea and reduce the cost of gas and energy in this country. I would say, all right, maybe certain pensioners then don't need their wealthy winter fuel allowance. Maybe that's fine. But Ed Miliband has just signed us up to add hundreds of pounds to our energy bills by accepting subsidies that would make the UAE blush, right? The amount of money of taxpayer cash that he's just handed over to these wind farms is absolutely absurd, adding hundreds of pounds to every single energy consumer in this country. So they haven't done that. They're cutting the winter fuel allowance at the same time as they're making energy more expensive, at the same time as they're sending 600 million quid of our money to Ukraine, a war that won't be won and it isn't going anywhere. And they're also sending £12.8 billion in foreign climate aid to countries that probably emit more carbon emissions and keep their country warm and toasty, like a Labour Party politician. So I can't understand the rationale. I think it's cruel. I think it's reckless. I nearly said feckless, but also feckless. It's reckless. It's cruel. People will die. More people die of the cold than they do the heat. We hear so much about climate change being a massive problem. In Britain, actually, we have far more people, and well, actually throughout the world, far more people die from the cold than they do the heat. So people are going to die. Pensioners will die.
Well, Darren, there was a GB News article the other day, and someone's done some research, some institute or whatever, and they're estimating that nearly 400,000 more people will die because of the winter fuel allowance cut.
Well, Chloe, interesting
That's
point.
a lot of people.
It is. The Labour Party commissioned a study in 2017. I think it was because it was posited as an idea.
It was trying to oppose the Tory policy at the time.
Exactly. So I think it was posited as an idea by Theresa May's government that they might do it. And then the Labour Party commissioned this study and they said thousands of pensioners would die as a consequence. Now they've gone ahead and done it and they say that actually, oh no, it won't be a matter now. It won't be an issue now. Maybe they just don't care about old people. Maybe that's why Sir Keir Starmer likes assisted dying so much. Maybe in the name of protecting the NHS, we'll start seeing old people being shipped off to a Dignitas-style clinic, seeing the end of their days just to cut the pension bill. I mean, I just find it all so grotesquely sinister.
And so sinister at the same time that GB Energy, which is going to add hundreds of pounds to your energy bill,
useless.
And of
doesn't
course
even produce its own energy.
Exactly, and all the other cuts to pensioners, the bus pass, the single person's allowance for widowers, the winter fuel cuts, and the measly £9 extra a week they'll get from the triple lock for state pensioners next year. I don't know how they're going to afford to live, let alone heat their homes. There is an unspoken poverty crisis amongst pensioners in our country. People don't seem to care. The government really don't seem to care. If anything, they want to kill them off early so they have less burden on the state and suck up all those extra pension cash bonuses for their civil service mates. I just really, really despair, and I feel like pensioners were lied to. They were played by the Labour government, who put this grandstanding fake face on in the form of Carol Vorderman, who promised them it would be all right and that they'd have this glorious socialist government that would look after everybody. But the reality is that they're actually worse and nastier than the Tories were. Let's not forget the Tories dished out billions of pounds to keep people's jobs over COVID. They dished out billions and millions of pounds for the winter fuel payments because they actually seem to care about people, funnily enough. And yet they're the ones branded the nasty party. I haven't got a lot of love for the Conservative Party at the moment, but I tell you what, any day I'd have them back over what we've got today.
Oh, yeah.
And if people's lives depend on it, then even more reason to do so.
Yeah.
And the Labour Party was originally supposed to be the poor man or the working man's party, where they gave money to the poor. But now they're taking money from the poor. And, we have all these crackdowns. So I'm just thinking, who is this Labour Party actually pleasing? You're not pleasing the people that are supposed to be on your side, the poor, the people that are old, pensioners, people that are on benefits, welfare. You're cutting everything for them, right? And also, you're stopping sales of arms to Israel. That's a war that can actually be won, and it's not like you're giving them foreign aid, you're selling them arms, so you're going to get money back. And then you give money to Ukraine. Again, as you said, Darren, that war is not going to be won.
No.
It's going to be, Putin's not going to give back the land he's already taken. I feel like that's a dream, So I think the quicker we negotiate on that, the better. I feel like we already wasted a lot of money on Ukraine.
Exactly.
And I think we should support Israel. And we should, instead of trying to give these pay rises to these MPs and, all these things, we need to give, because look, the cost of living crisis in this country is very high. Rents are up 25% since 2 years ago. And then we add the fuel payments. So now people have to pay 30, 40, 50% more just to live. And that's only compared to 2 or 3 years ago. And no, I don't understand why people are not talking about that. The Labour government, the working man's party, which they are not, they are a globalist party, let's keep it real. The working man's party is not looking after the weakest in society. And I think that's pathetic.
Yeah, well said, Eunice. I completely agree. Now, to end then, I want to play this clip from the House of Lords. Now, the House of Lords, not a place that you would consider to have any drama, but there was a little bit of drama in the House of Lords. I think it was yesterday. There was a debate on Muslim hate crime in the House of Lords, and I think it was a Labour peer, gave a speech, and I'll just let you listen and then try and keep an ear out for the intervention that you can hear, the heckle that you can hear.
My Lords, there are no comparative statistics to show that Muslims suffer more from irrational prejudice than, say, any member of the Hindu, Sikh or Buddhist faiths. To borrow from Shakespeare, if a member of those other faiths is cut, do they not bleed? Will the noble Lord, the Minister, confirm that the government will be even-handed in looking to the needs and concerns of all religions and those of no faith.
Can I, in response to the Noble Lord's important points, all forms of racial and religious discrimination are completely unacceptable and they have no place in our communities. This government will be exploring a more integrated and cohesive approach to tackling it. We are committed to protecting the right of individuals to freely practice their religion, and we will not tolerate religious hatred in any form to any religion.
So I assume that was someone within the parliamentary gallery above the House of Lords that got in and shouted, "Tell that to Rotherham." So he shouted, "Tell that to Rotherham, tell that to Rotherham," just after he'd given his speech. And they, first of all, I don't know why the House of Lords is having a debate on how we need to treat all religions equally. Well, how about we just treat all people equally, right? And to be hell with religious sectarianism. Like this Sikh guy clearly has an issue with the Muslims getting preferential treatment. Well, so do I. But I don't want Sikhs to get preferential treatment either. How about we just all have equality in law and within British life? Like, that's how I thought it was always supposed to be. And then there's tell that to Rotherham. Yeah, good point. I think we still turn a blind eye to attacks in the name of by certain groups for fear of being accused of racism, and that's why we see so many things with the police go unchecked. I can bet my bottom dollar that the reason that the Manchester Airport 2 haven't been arrested is because the police are too scared about being accused of being institutionally racist. I can bet you that's the idea. But I just thought it was...
They already have been called racist.
Yeah, I thought it was an
saw
interesting
all the
intervention.
headlines in that gap between the first video and the second
suspended
video.
copper.
Racist attack.
Yeah,
by
and
the
then
police.
they're investigating whether or not it was someone within the police that released the video to prove that the copper actually, had a fair license to kick this fella in the face, given what he had just done. But Alex, where are you at on this? Because, one, do you think it's appropriate for the House of Lords to be having a debate on Muslim hate crime? They're going to have a debate shortly about the tenets that will make up the Islamophobia being a crime, which will see Eunice in the slammer, and a whole host of other things. Like, you see what I mean? Like, have we not got other things to be dealing with right now?
Yeah, it's completely bottom of the list of priorities for this country, but there's obviously an agenda, isn't there? And part of the agenda of the government over the next few years is this Operation Scatter, which we've heard a little bit about in the press, which is to basically put migrants across the country, spread them across the country, perhaps even to towns where the migrants will outnumber people. And that these laws are going to be written in a way that basically creates Islam, criticizing of Islam in the same bracket as racism, which is ethnicity. So the reality is that yes, we're going to really, really have a hard time even protesting against immigration. And this whole purpose of that is to lock you up for more reasons. And essentially, if anyone gets offended by your criticism of Islam online or even on this podcast, you'll have the police knocking at your door. It's all part of a wider conspiracy, in my opinion, for them to be able to do that. And I think you may see that also across the rest of Europe as well, until people decide enough's enough. But this country is facing an economic crisis, a social housing crisis, an OAP poverty crisis, and the priority, of course, is to look after a small minority of people as usual.
Chloe?
Yeah, I mean, Alex, you said that perfectly, so I don't have a whole lot more to add. But I'm just really, really terrified for if and when we end up with these Islamophobia laws. Like, I think that free speech is already in a pretty horrifying place as it is. If we add on top to that Islamophobia laws, I mean, we're not going to be able to say anything. As you say, Alex, it's going to become really, really hard to protest and speak out against immigration. There are terrifying times ahead, people. Sorry to end on such a dismal note.
Well, on a very funny note, the firefighters in Pennsylvania have just pranked President Trump because they placed a baseball cap on his head, and look what it says.
Oh, it's Biden. Oh, President
Yeah.
Biden. Sorry.
That's for real.
Oh,
Is that real? Is that real?
Apparently real, yeah.
Oh,
that's
my
funny.
God, that would be absolutely
Trump
that's
hilarious.
good.
2024.
Yeah.
I like it. And
Like,
there's a video. Look, there's a video of him taking it off.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Very
they
good.
really done
very
him there. Good.
Yeah, I like that.
Sound.
Eunice, did you have any comments before we bring proceedings to a close?
Yeah, so I just want to say, as you said, Darren, what's so hard about just treating everyone equally and having freedom of speech where we can criticize any bad idea, regardless of religion or race, where everyone can say what they want? Of course, not inciting violence, but questioning bad ideas, regardless of what it is, and treating everyone equally, whether you're black, white, Muslim, gay, lesbian, whatever. I just don't understand, because this will lead to more sectarianism. It will lead actually more to more identity politics, and it will actually rather divide us rather than unite us. So even let's say they want to unite us, it's us that want to unite. It's people like us that want to unite because we stand for freedom of speech. We're like, regardless of where you come from, you should be treated the same under the law, right? But they are the ones saying, oh, there's one rule for black people, one rule for Muslims, and one rule for the white man, And I just find that ridiculous, because they are the ones that will lead to sectarianism, and they are the ones that will lead to division. Okay, so and the funny thing is, they pretend it's the far right that is causing division. No, it's not. It's you guys that are causing division. People that play identity politics are the ones that cause division, because they see everything through the prism of race, gender, or sexuality.
Yeah. All right, guys, we'll bring proceedings to a close, but thank you very much. I'm afraid we haven't ended it. I'm glad that President Biden made a cock-up, because otherwise it would have just been a very miserable set of proceedings today. But there are miserable times, miserable things going on. Thank you to each of you, Alex, Eunice and Chloe. You can find each of them on social media platforms wherever you're at, basically. Alex is on OnlyFans. Eunice is on...
Don't tell people that.
Eunice is on milfhunter.com. Chloe is on Housewives for Britain. And
slightly more respectable than the others, I guess.
Ashley Madison, then. Anyway,
yeah,
Darren's on Ashley Madison. There you go.
I am. Get looking, get searching, and we'll see you all.
And Darren's on Substack.
I'm on Substack, yes. You can sign up at darrengrimes.com. And you can also support Reasoned by going to reasoned.uk and making sure you're subscribed to our channels. And thank you to everyone for your super chats and all the rest of it. Have a very good night. Thank you for your company.